Welcome back to another episode of Cobra Kai Companion. I'm Peter. You guys, we got a good one today. We got, I
Oh.
bet you guys have lots of questions. Hopefully, we can get some answers. Joining me is Josh Lamboy, who plays Sensei Ivanov. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, and you?
Doing well. So it's a Tiger Strike. You're the Sensei, the Russian team. We will definitely get there. Got some questions. But let's learn a little bit about you. And I just learned this before you even got on. You're not Russian.
No, no. Background's Puerto Rican. I'm born in Massachusetts and raised in Miami. So, me and Yuji had a great talk about that. He's like, "Oh, you can do a Russian dialect." I'm like, "Yeah, besides stunts and martial arts, I also act and can do a lot of that." And he goes, "Oh, what's your background?" I'm like, "Puerto Rican." He's like, "Puerto Rican playing a Russian." I'm like, "Yep."
That's hilarious. But if it works, like so,
It works,
sometimes
yeah.
maybe we didn't have a lot of options to go with, and you were maybe light-skinned enough, to kind of
Yeah.
I don't know,
Well, we'll get more into it, but like I did a role in like live stunt shows where I actually played a Russian for 3 years. So it just when they gave me the call, like, can you do a Russian dialect? I'm like, I got you.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's nice to have some of those in the bag.
Hmm.
Um, so like, so you said from Boston, grew up in
Yeah.
Miami, or okay,
Yeah. I grew
so.
up in Miami.
So what was going on in Boston? Did you also come from a family of martial artists?
My dad was a martial artist, and I took martial arts at United Taekwondo in New Hampshire, in Pelham, New Hampshire. Great, great foundation. And I studied martial arts there, and then I moved first to Florida, then to Miami, and continued martial arts my entire life. But as a kid, I also wanted to act. And as an 80s baby, it was actually Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, watching Short Round, getting to
Mm.
act, do fights, and I was like, I want to do that. I could do that. And so, besides studying martial arts, I also studied acting at the same time and dance.
Oh wow. So, but back to Indiana Jones real quick. That was the inspiration. That was
There was a couple inspirations. So, The Last Dragon was a huge one for me. But actually, what made me want to do martial arts was in The Last Dragon when Bruce Leroy is watching Bruce Lee on the screen. So it was the clip of Bruce Lee in Chinese Connection, watching him do like the 8 kicks, and I was like, and my dad was already taking martial arts, so he saw that glint in my eye, and he's like, "Okay, let's go."
yeah,
So that's what it was. But to be an actor who does his own fights and stuff, it was watching someone my age, Short Round, doing it in Indiana Jones.
I mean a short round, even like Goonies, came out the same year, or that's well, no, Temple of Doom was 84, but The Last Dragon came out 85. I wonder how come they haven't done a remake of that one yet, like
Hmm.
yeah, I think people were excited with the idea of like a Busta Rhymes as,
Oh my
showing up, or,
yes.
Samuel Jackson, like someone, I mean, I guess Busta Rhymes because of was it Dangerous music
Dangerous.
video? Yeah. Yeah. For the youngins, you can check that out. It's a good video.
Yes.
But I love that soundtrack. I was that, that wasn't Quincy Jones, was it?
It
I know
was
it
it was a Motown production and it was Barry Gordy was a producer.
Very
And
Gordy.
fact,
That's what.
a couple years ago, I got to see Ty Monk. I guess it was an anniversary or something, and I had custom made yellow and black Converse that I got him to sign. So that was a huge highlight.
Have you ever crossed paths with like Ernie Reyes Jr.?
That I haven't.
Yeah.
It's just always close enough in the industry.
So Taekwondo, you also mentioned dancing. This is Miami at this point.
Yeah, so like I was like kind of self-taught as a kid, and then I started going to besides martial arts like dance classes, acting classes, and stuff. And then in college, I majored in musical theater.
Hmm.
So and besides Latin background, so it was like salsa, merengue, and then I could do tap, hip hop, ballet. And one thing I always tell when I teach workshops is that art helps art. My martial
Hmm.
arts help my acting. My acting helps my dance. My dance helps my martial arts. So if
Interesting.
you continue doing those arts, you will find applications in each one that kind of really expand your performance.
Well, what about breakdancing? Like in Miami, I'm thinking like your Stevie
Oh, dude.
B's,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah, that was definitely a thing too. And again, Martial arts help breakdancing, breakdancing help martial arts.
Yeah, yeah, I can totally see it. Being able to make all those moves and got to be able to have the upper strength to hold your body and all of it. Did you ever do like parkour later on?
Mm. Parkour came as I was like getting a little bit older, so I dabbled in it a little bit, but not as much as I would have liked to. But again, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, and with the I like how you think about like all these different arts and stuff like that. So like kind of going through school, did you do sports or was it always just kind of like Taekwondo and that was your
It was
path?
Taekwondo and acting, and then
Okay.
my teacher was great in allowing me and my buddies to make fight scenes. And when we did that, I also tell people, find your community. Find the guy who wants to direct, find the guy who wants to write. Find your other actors. So me and a buddy of mine would always do like the fight scenes and pep rallies, and then we had another friend who wanted to be a director. So we started doing indie films when we were like 16 and finding spots we're not supposed to film in and be like, let's go and then just make like short films.
I actually did stuff like that, but I never did martial arts. One of the shorts that I did was choreographed by me, but it was bad. It was just we had the idea, me and my buddy, we had the idea of being like I think sons of what was it? Either sons or grandsons. Basically, our lineage was Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee,
Yeah.
and it was us on the playground at some nearby elementary school because we needed the background. Anyway, it was
Down
bad, but
fights.
so I guess I feel like there was always a little bit of me where I maybe not thought about stunts, but ever since going to like Universal Studios as a kid and watching,
Oh,
your water worlds and stuff like that, I would come home and build my own obstacles. And so I always did stuff, but like I don't know why. I just never really had anybody to kind of give me that push.
yeah,
Like I was more of like a movie like goer rather than like going to watch people that gave me that inspiration. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But
yeah.
I kind of like hearing that
For
from
me,
from
like
other people.
it was weird when I was a young kid. Like I saw film and I got it, and I understood these are people playing. This is a costume. We're playing imagination. So ever since that young age, I've only wanted to do TV and film. There was no backup. It was just continue going for it, and here today talking to you about it.
Yeah, and your dad, who you said did martial arts, they were your parents. They were supportive, in
Yeah,
in
they were
like the
definitely
acting sense.
supportive. My dad had more of a military background in
Mm,
martial arts, and my mom was a little bit more artsy. So like he enjoyed the physical aspects of what I was doing. She enjoyed the creative aspects of what I was doing, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's awesome to have that that support system for sure. And when was it that you kind of got your like first break in stunt? And why stunt, right? Like you do the
Yeah.
martial arts
Hmm.
and you watch like some of these movies where you're like, well, I can be somebody that does that stuff, but then like stunts is not something that I feel like a lot of people are so privy to at an early age unless you had like
Yeah.
somebody
Like
that introduced
myself,
it to
like
you.
I watched a lot of films, and the films of the 80s was just action packed. So again, I was also the kid doing crazy stuff in the playground, jumping from thing to thing and saying, stunts. So yeah, so like in high school, I studied that, and in college, I studied musical theater. And after college, I danced professionally. I had wonderful instructors who when I was about to transfer, I had a great instructor by the name of Lee Dando, a dance teacher. And I said, hey, I'm going to transfer. I got accepted. And, I don't recommend this for everybody, but she goes, you're ready. You're a physical performer. Go right now. You can do it. I know you can. And, I was confused. I was like, wait, am I not supposed to continue? But she believed that I could do it. And she was like, you were performing, doing gigs before here, right? Go. And so I did. And yeah, I danced for a bit and then I wanted to get back into. So for me, stunt is also combined with acting. You're putting on a costume, you're being someone else. Intentions of fighting, is still acting. You don't go around and punch people in regular life. Something has to happen for you to want to do something to somebody. That is still an acting impulse. That is still something you have to grow inside you in order to execute. So for me, I started looking at the live shows, kind of like Universal and stuff like that. And I got into the Eighth Voyage of Sinbad on my first audition, and I got to stunt and act at the same time. And then from there was part of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter opening. and that's where I met my wife, Heather Lamboy. She was a dancer, and I was a fighter in the show. And from there, you meet like-minded people, other stunt folks, and we continued training with each other outside of shows and making indie films and stuff like that. And then the boom started happening. It wasn't just New York and LA. You started having tax incentives for film in Louisiana, Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
North
Mm-hmm.
Carolina. And so I knew that was the dream, you know. So I made my way to Georgia, and you know, if you invest your time in your art, it will come through. And luckily, me and the guys did, and so that's what happened.
I know I don't have the timeline down with me, but I know you did some like Stargirl, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and also like Walking Dead, if you can talk about some of those projects.
Absolutely. It was really cool with Walking Dead. I have an agent, and Walking Dead, when I first moved to Atlanta, was like the big fish. Everyone's trying to get onto Walking Dead. And I tried and tried and I couldn't. And then one day, my agent hits me up with an audition. And at the time, I wasn't feeling so well. And I was like, okay, let's just do it, you know. And because I just wanted to just get it over with and do it, it was the most simple, natural acting choices. It wasn't filled with, I really want this job so bad, and you fill it with fluff, you know? So when you do that, it became so organic, so very simple, and I got the job. And so that was really cool because I got hired to do a one-on-one fight with Andy Lincoln, the lead of the show, and it was a great moment in the show. And it was weird and a little personal because in that moment in the show, season 8, um, he was he was infiltrating a place that he thought had weapons, right? So he's about to open a room, and then I tackle him. We get into a big fight. He's thinking there's weapons. I'm stopping him from getting the weapons, and then he eventually kills me. And then he stabs me later, and you see on my chest it has a tattoo that says Grace. He opens that room, and it's not weapons. It's a baby girl. So I stopped him. I'm trying to stop him because I'm thinking he's an infiltrator going into my daughter's room, and he thought there was weapons. The crazy mirror of life is my daughter was the same age as the baby in the room. So that was an interesting thing because I had to do a fight scene as a dad, but you and I know as dads, we won't lose a fight protecting
Right.
our kids. And I had to.
Oh,
So a little bit of a mind mess up there. And so they were very happy with what I did. And then they brought me on again to double somebody. And then shortly after that, they asked me if I wouldn't mind stunt court or fight coordinating for a couple seasons. And I did. So that was cool. A really cool fun fact. So, okay, Emmy,
mm-hmm.
plays Sean.
Play Sean. Yep,
So you know what he did on Walking Dead, right?
I do, and I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
Yes. So he played Elijah on Walking Dead and did fantastic. I was the masked man in the premiere episode of that character, season 10, episode
16 or
16.
6.
Yeah,
Yeah,
16
right.
of Certain Doom. So I introduced the character on that, and then okay, was able to take it on, and that's a really cool, like, nice little piece of trivia for the fans out there.
It
Um,
really is. I was actually gonna make a graphic when I was doing my research and I saw that connection.
yes,
I was like, oh, that's really awesome. And they both ended up on, or I think okay at that point was already on
yeah,
Cobra Kai for season 3 when we first meet Sean and Robbie in Juvie, and then you get introduced as that character, and then he would be cast in that role
he'll
afterwards.
be casting the role. Yeah, so that was a really cool, like, handoff. And then shortly after that, a great friend of mine, a great stunt coordinator, Walter Garcia, called me up, and he knows my skills as stunts and in acting. And having also studied mime and movement, I could do a lot of like body articulation and stuff like that. And so he hired me to stunt double season 2, the villain, Eclipso. So that was really cool, and I got to do that. And then I came back season 3, and because of my ability to mimic and stuff, I doubled about 7 to 8 people season 3 of Stargirl. So those were pretty cool projects.
Yeah, and some connections with that Walking Dead stuff. You also doubled, if I'm not mistaken, for John Bernthal in Baby Driver.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I saw
John,
that, I go, oh yeah, I could totally see it. So that's like, really, really good casting there. And then the other, it's like like a previous interview, Paula Ray Taylor, who did the whole like Andrew Lincoln, thing in Love
Well,
Actually,
actually,
yeah, yeah, and then you worked with them, so that's
yeah.
really neat there. Um, Now, when you did Queen of the South, did you know Abraham Martinez, the VP for season 6 of Cobra Kai?
No, I did not. No,
Okay,
I did.
you guys overlapped, and so
Yeah, we overlap.
I was kind of curious. Yeah, so that would have been cool too. Like if like you never know exactly which crew members if they so
Never know.
like yeah, you just never know. And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, well, he was cinematographer for the
Mhm.
episodes that you were in the South, and here you guys are collaborating again in part two. So that's really awesome. So it kind of goes to show that the community can be small at
Oh,
this time.
absolutely, absolutely. What's
Uh,
really cool is while I was doing Queen of the South is when I saw Cobra Kai season one when it was on YouTube for the first
hmm,
time. And I'm sure, like Paula, who I gotta say, that interview was wonderful. She is a sweetheart. Yeah, I'm so happy uh, for her success and for her to be able to get Draga because good things to have should happen to good people, and she's an absolute gem, and she played that role wonderfully. So my hats off to that.
yeah,
Um,
there you go. Little shout out.
Little shout out to my girl. So yeah, I was in Texas and I was away from my family. And what was really cool was, Cobra Kai comes out, and again, as a fan of the '80s and everything, it was really gnarly to watch that. And I'm sure you can agree, they did wonderful. It was so great. And it's very hard to bring something back from that length of time and to hit, you know. And I remember I was away from my wife, I was away from my kid, and I was doing that job. And what was crazy was as I saw it, the moment when Daniel LaRusso puts on the gi again, and you hear those flutes, like I was in my room alone, and it just felt like electricity all over my body. And at the time, especially when you're a stunt performer, you train. But a lot of us would love to go back to the dojo, would like to go back to the studio and be a student again. And when that happened, I immediately said, I got to go back. I got to go back. So I connected back with my old masters in New Hampshire and went back once in a while and took class and was able to get my second degree black belt with my old masters who saw me as a kid when I was like 5 years old. Um, and like Paula, it was like a dream to try to get on Cobra Kai, you know.
What was your connection to the original film or films?
Oh man.
The history with that.
So the history with that is I grew up originally seeing part two. All
Mm,
right.
same.
Somewhere in my mom's house, there's a picture of me in a split in my Taekwondo pants and my Karate Kid action figures. And so, as you can imagine, like me watching Chosen and knowing close to 35 years later I'd be fighting him was surreal. So yeah, I grew up watching it. And then of course I saw the original, and it was that type of thing of like being an olive skinned kid who had hair like Daniel LaRusso's and like started taking martial arts and then got to use it against my bullies when it came time to was a big thing. And for a lot of us, it like followed us throughout the years, and the deep messages and the having the instructor who believes in you and pushes you to the next level and the moment of truth, like those films had those great moments, and I think that connects with everybody, being the kid who has to climb that hump and when you have to, you believe in yourself and bam, you execute and it works.
Yeah.
So those were always a big thing. A funny thing, the next Karate Kid was filmed in Massachusetts. And so some of the students at my old Taekwondo school got to be extras and be some of the tough gym guys in that film.
Oh wow, that's awesome. So you could have been part of that maybe if you
Yeah, but I
hadn't
would have
moved.
been lush,
Yeah.
lush.
I love the connection there with the second film. I mean, what I heard basically is your mom is a fan of Chosen. Is just I think that's what I heard. So the first
Watch.
movie, yeah, he takes off his shirt. You keep for your collection. Like
Yeah,
that's
look, he's good, isn't he?
yeah. Um, so obviously, you were very familiar with the first movie as well. It just sounds like the second one is kind of what you grew up on.
Yes. Yeah.
And so so how did you get attached, how did you hear about part two? Agent, just they were
Oh,
looking for
about like how
senseis.
to get into part two, season six.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting because I have buddies who worked on Cobra Kai, and we're like assistants and stuff. And in this business, if you treat each other nice, everyone's trying to help each other. And so I kept getting calls. I'm like, man, I gotta get on that show. And you also realize it's tangible. It can happen. It's not that far distant as it once was as a kid. And it's filming in your city. So I had buddies who tried to get me on, but I was working on Stargirl and I was on like the full run. And they're like, hey man, I think I got a spot. And I was like, oh, I can't get out of this. And so that kept happening. So I kept missing the boat over and over and over again. And so uh season six comes and uh and it was really funny because I just accepted. I was like, oh, it's the last season. I accepted my boat probably passed, and I will just be a fan. I will just be a fan of the show. And when I accepted that, I remember I was at a red light. I heard the show was going, and Master Tony Chung shoots me a text as I'm at a red light. Hey, sir, my name's Tony. We're interested in you in possibly auditioning for this part. Are you available? I think I hit the hardest 180 at the red light and just drove home. Called my wife. I'm like, get the light set up, get the camera set up. I have to self tape. And so we did it. And having done the Russian dialect for a while and reading the character, I was like, I know this guy. I I didn't have to do too much. I just hit it right at that audition and sent it within 2 hours of getting that text. And so my wife had an audition as well. So after I send mine, I'm helping set up her lights, and immediately I get a text, and they're like, "Oh, it's you." And I was like, "Wow." And just you had to take that breath and accept what's about to happen, and this dream that you've had since you were like 5 years old. Um, so that was really cool. And I got a couple of messages because some of them saw my tape and they're like, it's great. It's perfect. Oh man, you're set. And I asked one of those friends, I said, hey, did you happen to recommend me for this? And it was the great Christina Basket who doubles Sam in the show.
Mm.
And she goes, yes, I did. So she recommended me to Ken Barfield. And Ken had heard my name through a lot of people. So here was finally a chance because for him, it's like, man, I can't get this guy every time. And then here's an opportunity. And he's like, yes, I hear he's great. I'd love for him to be here. And then I did that audition and got to meet him and wonderful dude. And Don Lee as well. Don Lee, I definitely got to give a shout out to because that fight is hefty. That brawl is hefty. And he was so passionate. And there's so many great tributes in the fight. The combination that Chosen does to me was in Karate Kid Part 2, you know, roundhouse, roundhouse, judo throw. And so, like, he puts a lot of those elements in the fight, and he's very passionate and very detail oriented. But yeah, so it was an amazing experience. Going back when I talked to my friend and she goes, "Oh, you're gonna fight Chosen." That I was like, "I'm gonna need a minute. Excuse me." She just said it naturally. Oh, you'll fight
Yeah.
Chosen and you'll do this, and I was like, "Yeah, okay, all right." So that's how that happened. And then as we're filming, I meet Britt, and we became instant pals, and we still chat. And I love that we were partnered up with each other, and I thought the chemistry worked, and it came across on screen.
Yeah, I think it really did. You guys definitely look like a couple of badass coaches and slash
Yeah.
senseis. That I wouldn't want to mess with. Now, what is the story behind the picture with you, Ralph, Marty, and Billy? Was it
Oh
Dragon
man.
Con a few years
So,
back?
yeah, it was at one of the cons, and that was pre getting the job. And and so I got to meet them, and I had my All Valley shirt, just like you did. And, I got to pose out with them. And then I asked them, how was it, working on the show with the stunt folks? And they said, oh, it's great. It's wonderful. And then we just took a quick pic and that was it. Those cons,
Yeah.
you're just going through. So I had that and I was like, oh man, I just wish. And so I guess I'm gonna have to go back to a con and be like, Divide?
Yeah.
See if they'll
Yeah.
sign.
You made it. What were you able to kind of connect with any of them that you pictured with
So
to kind of
it
tell?
was quick, like quick
Yeah.
little interactions because they're very busy and there
Yeah.
was just so much going on. I remember the day that I had the confrontation with Gunther, which was a great day. I do that scene and I'm just kind of walking to the side and I hear, "Hey, I'm Billy," and I go, "Hi, I'm Josh." She's like, "Man, that was great," and I just smiled and I was ready to say, "Excuse me," while the 5-year-old inside me pees himself.
Oh, that's
He
amazing.
was absolutely wonderful. And then after the divide and starting the brawl, I was like tying my shoes and I hear that very recognizable voice, Divide! Oh man, that's great. People are gonna love it. Thanks. And I turn and it's Ralph Macchio. And I'm like, what is my life right now? And yeah, he was absolutely cool.
That's amazing. So after you book the role, what's next? Do you go and you start kind of training for your fights, or
So
at what point do you meet Karsten, who plays Gunther?
So yeah, so I get the role. I did my fittings and everything, and trying to remember the schedule because this was way back in March.
Yeah.
Uh, there wasn't too much training because there was so much going on. So even with the choreography, it was all Yuji, and it was all things he could do. And Yuji's a beast. The dude trains. He's excellent. He's absolutely excellent. And so I remember I had the Gunther scene first. And I remember the combo you had with Paula about like
Mm.
wanting to get the background of that. What's very interesting about that sequence is you don't have too much time, to rehearse. It's in theater, you have all the time to break down the script and, talk to each other. Well, I feel this. Is that what you feel? Okay, maybe we can gel it, or we can see what happens organically. So Carson, I met right then and there. And so when I did my acting homework, um, I did put a little bit of a history between us because in my head, coaches are clearly former competitors, you know? And so when he was digging on me and he's like, I can do that easily, I just pretended that, oh, we fought and he's trying to say, I did it once before, and I can do it again. So I just took it as that. And for me, I just peppered it a little bit with background on that. I didn't do too much. It was more of what's at stake. So the intensity came across. Well, I did ask the director, and I was like, "Hey, did they really do it?" And he goes, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Okay, well there it goes." You know, because that was a main question of all the questions. I needed to know that because if not, I will be more defensive, and I'm going to try to bring up facts and proof and everything. But if I really did it, I'm just going to be more upset that I got caught. And so when he's coming at me, all I kept thinking is, oh man, I have to go back to Russia, disgraced and with a loss. So with Ivanov, I pretended that as a former competitor, maybe I didn't win back in the day. And here is a second chance to prove myself. And when you're playing a character, you never look at them as bad or anything. You just look at them as just justifying certain means, and the means may not be positive. So when I was playing him, I just knew what was at stake. I couldn't lose whatsoever. We need this win, for a better life back in Russia or maybe to excel. And so by getting caught, I just had to fight back and, call BS and everything. So with me and him coming at each other, it kept doing this. And so that's what helped bring the intensity. And maybe my guy was dosing too. So I added that as well.
Yeah, it could be, and that's really interesting how you think about how he is a former competitor as well. I think one thing that people know but may forget that Sensei Wolf is a three-time champion, and so Ivanov
It
and
comes
Wolf
from
probably have
somewhere.
gone at it, and so
Absolutely.
there's even more layers there. Like, man, that's at least three losses right there. If he even
Big time,
participated every single
big time.
every other year as they would
And,
have these.
and with every loss and every comeback, you get a little bit more ferocious. You get a little bit more of an edge, you know. You're promising yourself that you're not going to take a loss, you know. And I think that's what Ivanov puts in his students. You know, they got a bit of an edge to them, you know. And plus, environmentally, training in Russia, you know, in cold, and it does give you a bit of a shell. You know, it gives you that tough exterior. And there's kind of like every team, I guess, in the Sekai Takai, you know, there's no loss. We cannot lose. You know, the stakes are so high.
Right. So before we get to like what happens, that before we get to the brawl,
Mhm.
here's kind of my big question to you. What was that first domino what was the pivotal one single event that could have been prevented that would have prevented Quan from dying on that dagger? Like, is it
Is
Kreese
it?
bringing the knife? Is it Ivanov
Yes.
punching Gunther? There's so
Yeah.
many different things that happened that could have
Yeah.
continued to happen. But what's the one thing that, like, if that one thing didn't happen, Quan never would have gotten
That's a
stabbed?
hard question because I think the writers did a great job in kind of blending those. They kind of like watercolored each situation, you know, so there is a blend. Definitely, if I didn't knock out Gunther, and you know, I also blame the little Irish girl who said, "Let's effing go."
Yeah.
You know, but no, it's the knife situation. It's clearly doping, and the hostility that was everywhere. You know, there's clearly hostility. You know, elbows Tanner. You know,
Hmm.
and then of course Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai are in each other's faces. You know, so there's a lot of that. Yeah, the knife could definitely be it. But if you look at the fight, I don't think anybody was gonna stop until something
Right.
serious happened. Also, you know, so
That's a
you
good
could
point.
say, you know, if the knife wasn't there, yeah. But, you know, Kwan kept getting up and kept getting angrier. And now there was already blood spilled without a knife, you know?
Hmm.
So something serious was definitely going to happen. I definitely say Ivanov takes a huge part of the blame, big time. And I've seen wonderful fan sites who are like, this guy right here, it's his fault. And it's me like, I was like, yeah, that's it. So I'd say it's a combination, definitely a combination. The
Yeah.
fan reactions have been great because you know Carson has played Gunther with such a weight to him, you know,
Mm.
and this very official, persona that he takes, he's very up there. So the fan reactions of him getting hit, everything stops. Mind you, they're seeing skirmishes that are happening, they're seeing some cheating going on, but once Gunther gets hit, all hell breaks loose. They know there's no going back. You know, whoever hits an official, and you know, happened in the Olympics a couple years ago, and that guy was banned for life.
Mm.
So in Taekwondo. So yeah, I would say I'll take it.
But
I'll say Ivanov gets a bit of the blame. I also
maybe
blame the
Master.
no security there.
That's true. It must be on a lunch break or something.
Yeah.
But
Well,
Master
a room
Kim,
full of black belts. Who's going to go in there and be like, "Hey,
that's yeah.
stop,
What are they gonna do?
world champions,
Right.
please."
Um, but Master Kim's the one that gave Priest the knife. Like if maybe if he doesn't do that, the knife doesn't exist.
Oh
But
yeah,
also, I love how Sensei Kim goes to Chosen's like put the knife back. So
yeah, yeah.
the knife is put back.
There
But
was this entire show, and again, my hats to the creators are so great at the duality of every single person. You know, Daniel has his highs, but he also makes his mistakes. You know, I love that in one part earlier in the season when I think when Robbie does something with Sam, and then Daniel LaRusso's coming in hot. Johnny, with that old dad experience and the whole idea of like I used to make mistakes too, he tries to talk down Daniel, hey, let's be cool, and then Daniel comes in hot, Kim, who's having this great change in character. If you see her moment being like, guys, like stop fighting,
right.
between the students, you know. So the show's wonderful in adding all those dynamics because your favorite characters will have their villain moments as well, and vice versa.
100%. Yeah. So what can you share from you kind of talked about like the confrontation between Gunther, like anything else you remember from that day or when you guys filmed that?
One, he was absolutely wonderful. It was really, really cool. Um, yeah, the confrontation was really cool because it happens in theater as well, but the moment where two people are having a conflict and everything else is quiet, that's what adds tension, you know? So there we are going at each other's faces. Everyone's just watching, you know? And clearly there's so much at stake, and, it clearly brings back Cobra Kai, you know? But I remember thinking, like, as he's getting in my face, I was like, there's too many eyes on us. I'll get him back. Right now's not the time, you know? And a person who's getting talked to like that in front of his students, no, no.
Right.
I usher him away. And I think that's what builds up Ivanov, like it just, some people can chill out after a while. Some people, just escalate. And I think his was just kind of getting to a boiling point. And I remember being there the day of the other fights between Robbie and Axel, and
Mm,
it helped build up the moment because if you notice, we got kicked out of the Sekai Takai, but we're still there in the corner.
mhm.
Imagine you're kicked out of something and have to watch everyone compete. You're gonna boil, you
Right.
know? So I just allowed that moment to be like, that should be us. We should be up there, and seeing everyone else celebrate. So I allowed that to kind of build that moment where I'm just gonna run and just knock them out.
That's very interesting. I'm gonna have to go back and yeah,
They're
watch
right
the
there in the
staging.
corner,
Right. Right.
and if you, I mean, there's so much to look at, it's
There is.
that that episode is like a great portrait. There's so many things painted everywhere. Everything is filled. If you watch that show over and over, that episode, you'll see like, oh, look at Draga's like upset watching Tori fight or so. There's a lot going on. And so I remember being there and just being like, okay, I don't have to do too much. This sucks. Watching people compete and you have to stay there. No.
It's Gunther's fault. You guys were removed and but you guys were still
Should have
there.
took me
Like
out.
somebody you guys should have been
It's
like
like if a
done.
kid is punished, don't let him watch, his brother open his Christmas gifts.
Exactly. Exactly. It's Gunther's fault now.
Totally Gunther's
Um,
fault.
yeah. So you mentioned Britt Baker earlier. If
Homegirl
I don't
kills.
know if you have any like interest in wrestling, but if you can share like when you guys met to become like these co senseis for the
So
Russian
we
team.
met, yeah, we met and we instantly hit it off. I've always been a wrestling fan, and she was very cool. And Britt's tough. Britt's tough. And I got to give her little pieces of advice, because she did a great job. And she was so thankful for that. And like we just like really cherished our time together, and we kind of gave each other props. I got to see her fight Kim. She saw me fight Chosen. So it was a great camaraderie, and we still talk to this day. And I remember right after the show, I'm like, Britt, look what they're selling. And she's like, oh man, I'm gonna get mine. So like we're sending each other photos of like when each one like got theirs. Um, yeah, she totally is like, hey, whenever I'm in town, I'll let you know and you can come to one of my matches.
Nice.
So yeah, she was very cool. A cool story. I got to give my props to my girl Britt. So when she was fighting Kim, Kim has that nice long braid with the beads, and they're fighting and everything. And just by mistake, nobody's fault, the beads hit Britt right in the face, you know, and like it was like, cut. Let's make sure everyone's okay. And Britt, being who she is just like, guys, I'm fine. She was super cool about it. I remember we were at lunch, and stunt guys talking about like, oh, what are some crazy ones you've had? What injuries? What, crazy falls? And then I stop and I go, hey, Britt, have you ever been in a hardcore match? And she goes, yep. I'm like, what sucks? And she's like, man, falling on thumbtacks. And we're like, oh, God. She's like, yeah, the worst ones are when it lands here or here. And we're like, yo, she's the real deal. Yeah.
Right. Like thumbtacks. I can't even imagine. No thanks. But I guess I'm not built for stunt at all.
Yeah, that's her. And the other shout out, Yuji, my dude Yuji, Chosen. Again, I remember I went up to him the first day of meeting him. I introduced myself and said, "Hey, we're gonna, I'm Sensei Ivanov will be fighting. It's a great honor, and he was so wonderful. And getting to fight him again was so surreal and so cool. And we worked very well together, and we had a bunch of great chats, and we've exchanged numbers and keep in contact and stuff. He is a wonderful, wonderful dude.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that. I just visited him for his restaurant's annual Halloween party. So I went up
Oh,
there.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, got to go talk to him about. Well, at that point I hadn't seen part two yet, but
yeah.
I like to go visit and we just chit chat about the show and stuff like that. But after part two came out, we definitely talked a little bit, and I was just like, I love that part where Chosen rides off in a scooter, and he said it was one of his favorite moments too.
Oh man,
Um,
the moment in the show where again I think Chosen might be one of my personal favorites, but the moment where Daniel LaRusso is at Miyagi's grave and then that slow pan to see that he's actually talking to Chosen, I was like a little girl at a Justin Timberlake concert. I was like, oh my God, it's Chosen. He's coming back and with a vengeance. So yeah, Yuji is absolutely wonderful. Amazing person, great character, great performer, great actor, great fighter, everything.
yes, 100% agree. You're not gonna hear any criticism from me about Chosen. I'm a pretty big Chosen fan. Uh,
And again, what a character arc. What a
yeah,
fantastic character arc. You know.
didn't see that coming. Even though we got that. Oh, that was one of the first look images that came out. Was Chosen and Sensei Kim at a bar. And everyone's like, "Oh, they hook up, they hook up." I'm like, "No way, they are hooking up." And but I did joke and I shared that picture and I said that no one can resist a Taguchi charm, still not knowing that they would end up hooking
That
up.
didn't
So
happen.
so I watched it for the first time and I kid you not, I was literally in shock. My mouth, I don't usually react that animated to things,
Mhm.
most of it is in my mind. And I'm like, oh, interesting or whatever. But once they went at it, my mouth literally just dropped, and it was a gape, and I was just like, what? Did not see that coming. But I think a lot of people were on board, once they saw how happy they were.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you we know how chaotic it was, but if you can share just like
Oh man, yeah.
filming that
So
brawl.
yeah, again, Don Lee and the team, fantastic job. Fantastic. That's so much, and so much could go wrong too. It's hard to watch all that. Um, I would say one of my, as I worked with Don Lee, I hadn't met Don Lee, and he heard stories about who I was, and we became cool after he kind of saw me do some of the sequences. I think one part that I'm very proud of is the part where I come in and sweep Kim and then doubled by the wonderful Alex. Um, I was able to be near camera and just rush in and do it, right? And then when they turned the camera around, I was like, oh, and I said, Don, I clearly can't just stand there waiting for the hit. And now you can see the whole arena, so I can't just be chilling there. So I'm gonna have to go way back and somewhere else. And Don's like, "Ooh, yeah, good luck with that timing." Just like I was like, "All right." So I had to watch Britt and Kim's fight and make it there at the right time, but I had to be far away. I went to the back of the arena, and then I was like, "Well, I can't just be standing there in the middle, as you can see me down the pipe." So then I went like 40 feet to the right. And so it's like action. So as I'm walking, I'm like watching their fight between skirmishes of people. And luckily, because of like dance background, I can tell rhythm. So I was like, okay, I got 8 beats until I got to be there. And if I got there close to too early, I remember an extra would rush by, and then they'd seen me as Ivanov. So I was like, I need to buy myself a beat. So I just like flinched at them. They're like, oh God. And so I was like, there, I bought my beat. And then I got there right at the last second, from the other side of the arena. So that was pretty cool. Everyone did such a fantastic job. Going back, I digress. Like the core team spent a while working on those vignettes. Sam's fight, Robbie's fight, Miguel's fight, and then it was very impressive. And again, Don and Ken led that ship. Okay, now we're focusing on this. and those people were well rehearsed. Boom, executed. Great. Moving on. He didn't have to do one, for 20 takes. Everybody was on point. And again, that also goes to the crew, filming, editing. Again, I know Justin said it, my hat's off to the editor, because as you watch it, you didn't get lost. You kind of understood every single segment that was happening. So yeah, it was 3 days. It was 3 days of once I think it started with the Robbie Axel fight, then Gunther mysteriously falling down, and then everyone going to town, And yeah, we did it in 3 days, all that, and yeah, everybody, the actors did a fantastic job, and the stunt team did a fantastic job. Everybody.
Yeah, they really really did. You name dropped Alex Wong, who is on Cobra Kai, Team Cobra Kai, but also yeah, she doubled for Una in part
Hmm.
one and then Alicia for part
Yeah.
two. It would be interesting to kind of rewatch it and see if the editors used any footage of like, the back of Alex as Kim, and then like in another sequence, it's her like fighting as her character,
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
show. That'd
I
be
will
kind of funny.
say for the fight, I think it was all Alicia.
Okay.
I think Alex did the sweep, but
Mm.
yeah, Alicia rock and roll, and again, and of course, so did, Britt. So like both girls stood in there and rock and rolled. It was really
Yeah.
cool. And again,
And
same
that,
with Yuji did the whole thing by himself against me.
oh yeah, I mean they're all pretty trained, and we see some of the footage, the just the work that they put in and all of that, and so
I think
um
people also understand, like everybody wanted to be there. Everybody wanted to do their part. Everyone understood the gravity of the scene.
mm,
It's, oh man, if they're kicking butt and this is my turn, let's go. Everyone took a great responsibility in their piece that they were adding to the Miyagi-verse.
right, that's a great way to kind of look at that. Like they everyone wanted to kind of participate. Nobody's phoning it in, but like no, let my
Oh,
one
well,
person or
and as you and I talked, like we all grew up with this. You want to fake it in front of Daniel LaRusso and Johnny,
right.
you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So, especially for a lot of us who waited for this opportunity, like we're gonna bring our A game, and so that was definitely a lot of pride. That's the word. Everyone had pride in
Mm,
this, and I think it comes across, And again, um, Axel, Robbie, Miguel, Miyagi-Do team, Cobra Kai team, everybody did fantastic, fantastic.
yeah, they really did. I just love watching the chaos, and I really do hope that they get recognized for their work. Ken and Don, for
Absolutely.
staging all this. Do you have any kind of fun stories from any of the filming? Just hanging out with your crew.
So,
You got
yeah,
Daniel and
my
Paula.
my Russian stunts,
Yeah, Paula mentioned
Dorian,
something about like a ear trick or something that you do with the ear. It's is this
oh, me,
are are you familiar, or do you know what I'm talking about at all? She
there's an
she
ear
said
trick.
that you would know what I'm talking about. Let me just pull it up real quick. She says, uh, where is it? Oh, you're pretty good at miming, and also, oh, it's a side tooth thing.
Oh yeah, my little snaggletooth.
Okay, okay, so it was that.
I
But what
think
is
what it is like, being serious and and just like having moments where, I'm just messing around. I look serious and then I turn to Paula like and just show the truth. Stupid
what
stuff
that
like
mean? Okay,
that.
I don't
Where
know why I thought
you have to
ear.
be like cold and, stoic. And then just every once in a while, just like when the camera's not rolling or whatever, just do that and just see them break.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
of course, when the camera's off. But yeah, for my Russian stunts, Dorian, Daniel, Mike, Austin, Nikita, and Paula, we were definitely a bunch of clowns. We Everybody was so skilled. Everybody was so skilled. And then when the cameras are off, we were just, goofing. And the thing that's really cool about this is you became really quick friends with everybody. So after this, I would see Paul, I would see Daniel, at a stunt gathering, and we're like immediately friends, and I think that happened with a lot of people. I'm cool with Justin and Jules. Like it's an experience. You know, so like a lot of us now are kind of like cheering each other on in the field, which is really awesome. Again, I loved seeing Paula's interview. I loved seeing Justin and Jules talk. And now it's like the Cobra Kai family now is way more extended, you know. And so I think that's something we all took from that experience. What's really cool is there was so much fighting going on that when you watch it over and over, if you pick one person, you can spot them in all the other sequences. You're like, oh, look, that's him running away. Oh, that's him grabbing him. So that's like a Where's Waldo type. But again, the room was filled with skilled martial artists.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you were kind of saying, how like everyone's kind of like part of this big thing, right? Like when I spoke with Paula, I think it was after the actual interview, and we just we're just kind of just chatting, and I mentioned something about like we are all Miyagi-Do, at the end of the day, like we love those movies, and I love for you guys in this community of martial artists and stunt performers slash actors, um like you guys come away with this as being part of like the Miyagi verse, and it's like we are all Cobra Kai as well. So that's really really awesome
I,
to have.
I think what's cool is like an athlete, as an actor or whatever. Um, I remember Michael J. Fox had said this about the Back to the Future movies, like having for him to like relearn how to skateboard and do some of that. And he did a lot of his own action. It's like, pain is temporary, but film is forever. So for us, it's up there, man. Like we are part of the Miyagi verse no matter what, like I could be 80 and be like, I was in that world, and I think that's for a lot of us. I'm pretty sure that 80% of the people in that room are in there, are martial artists because of Karate Kid. I had a moment to speak to John, and I just wanted to tell him like thank you. I
John
said,
Hurwitz.
yep. And I said, thank you so much. I said, for bringing the show back. And I said, you nailed it. You really nailed it, And a lot of us became martial artists, because of these films, and it meant a lot to us. So I just kind of want to thank you for clearly bringing it back. And clearly you have a passion for it. I remember hearing stories from stunt buddies that they're like, they'd come watch stunt rehearsals. They were so involved in every aspect of it because they loved it. And because they loved it, the work shows.
Yeah, absolutely. They're big fans too. Like I mentioned this all the time at one of the Cobra Kai events. Josh Hill, addressed the fans and says that they are fans of the show as well. And if they weren't making the show for us, they'd be in the audience with the rest of us watching it as fans, watching somebody else do it. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that it's these three who are big fans of the movies. As we get ready to wrap up, or is there anything in the works that you might be able to kind of share for people to keep an eye
I have
on?
a couple things I can't fully say, but if you follow me on Instagram, Fight221, uh, possibly a movie where I might be stunt acting in. So opportunities are coming, and they're going well. Besides stunts and acting, like my dream as a kid was to have that like Antonio Banderas, Patrick Swayze career where you just get to do everything, drama, acting, fight, and just dabble into every genre. So like that's my main goal. And with this, the fans have been wonderful and they're reposting stuff and then these other opportunities. It seems to be going in that direction. So yeah, if you follow me, I'll kind of let you guys all know what's coming up.